Playboi Carti has been through many phases throughout the duration of his career, from Sir Cartier, Cash Carti, Baby Voice Carti, to his most recent deep voice ominous Castlevania blood-sucking vampire Opium Carti. His list of accolades is vast and is still very much growing, but his most prominent achievement to date is his label Opium, comprised of 4 talented acts. But not everybody sees it that way. Only validating 2 acts, Destroy Lonely and Ken Carson. But what if I said the other 2 acts were the best acts out of the whole label? Now, before you opium oppressors come and give me 101 reasons as to why I'm wrong and want to burn me at the stake, just hear me out. I'm not here to tell you to toss Ken or Lone to the side, but to validate that the other members are rightfully a part of Opium, but may even be the best in Opium, period. Buckle up and let's take a ride and talk about it. Is Homicide Gang underappreciated? Homicide Gang is an Atlanta rap duo underneath the highly acclaimed rapper Playboi Carti and his successful rap label Opium, also known as 00. Homicide Gang is comprised of 2 members, Keon Thomas, aka Homicide Bino, and Demetrius Chapman, aka Homicide Michi. Formed in 2019, both rappers hail from the Draco and Switch-ridden wasteland of East Atlanta, commonly known as EA, but lived in separate areas. The pair met while they were younger at a high school basketball game, and the duo have been inseparable since. Given the duo's rap moniker, they have some major connections in the rap game, such as ties to Problem Child, who is in the process of getting a major push by Atlanta's trap president Future, and R5 Homicide, who had his own big wave going on locally, which helped catapult them into eventually signing with Carti when he heard the popular track SSN. Bino's name was even on the title for one of Carti's songs on A Whole Lotta Red, as well as being shouted out on a song called Stop Breathing with protege R5. Michi can also be seen having ties to the late R5 in a tribute video Homicide members held for him, paying homage to R5 tracks after his passing. The duo was signed to Opium in 2021 and recently signed a new record deal with Interscope. Homicide constantly gets the rap for being the bottom of the barrel in discussion of Opium, but I'm here to challenge that statement today to show that not only is Homicide Gang underappreciated, but possibly the hardest working duo out of the label and rightly deserves their spot on the Opium label. Leading up to the duo's debut project, Homicide Lifestyle, it's no secret that the pair had bangers before signing to Carti with tracks like Holler, 5-5 Lifestyle, Snotty Wax, and SSN, which led to a big turning point for the pair as they were clearly in their infancy, as they had only been rapping for a short while by the time they were signed. While most people consider Homicide Lifestyle to be a second choice compared to Snot or Not, it doesn't change the fact that this project not only had their big breakout hit Lifestyle, but their songs littered all throughout the project that take only one listen to get you stuck in a trance, while a few others take some getting used to. Filled with rage beats clearly following in the footsteps of Carti's Whole Lotta Red, Homicide make it clear that the music they make is made for an explosive stage presence and isn't for the casual hip-hop listener who likes to dissect lyrics and keeps a very conscious mind. The project will land the number 16th spot on Billboard's Heat Seekers chart, while the song Lifestyle took a life of its own on TikTok, from listeners slowing down the track to anime or adding more guitars to give it a heavier rock-infused trap sound. The project will be received overall well, with Opium fans ready to give the pair a very warm welcome. Coming off the hot album Homicide Lifestyle, the pair would flood the musical market with another project titled Snot or Not only 4 months after the previous joint. With the profound album cover generated by AI of Taylor Swift's face, the pair would receive pushback from Swifties along with a few underground lovers displaying an upside-down cross, which is branded all throughout Opium Signese on the face of Taylor, along with the number 5 on her tongue, which is commonly used by blood sets alluding to the 5-point star. This album would also peak at the same number as the previous project, coming in on Heat Seeker's number 16th spot, giving us big songs like Uzi Work and Dive In. The project had bangers, but it seemed to be a pattern going on. While Bino would handle all the choruses, Michi would handle the verses in short, quick burst waves. While the pair does seem to bounce and flow off each other seamlessly, it created a lingering problem still to this day: repetition. Fans wanted to hear more of what Michi could bring to the table and even considered him the leader of the pair bar-wise, setting the bar high with tracks like SSN, Damn, and No Evie. At this point, the duo had given us something to hold fans over, but no innovation or recreation of the wheel was made, which I can't have too many gripes on because this is the sound that gave them so much attention and made them loved among fans in the first place. The pair were sticking to what they knew, which generated tracks we enjoyed. Snot or Not would be Homicide Gang's best received project to date, so why would the pair receive so much pushback and hate around this time? They would give fans just enough to stay engaged when the track came on, but they just couldn't seem to gain a cult following like Lone or Ken. Something was missing. 6 months after the last project, the pair dropped again the same year with no push, marketing, or what even seemed to be word of mouth. The album Fifth Amendment would fly under the radar, engrossed by the same sound that made the gang popular, with most tracks being more melodic and improving on the quality of tracks, giving Michi the lead more than previous projects with tracks like Lex Luger, B5, and Road Rage. But the slight tweaks and improvements would fall short in the grand scheme of things. The effort was there, but the project as a whole would be stale, and by this point in time, Homicide would be discarded and dismissed by the majority of Opium fans. The duo was struggling to keep the masses on the Homicide bandwagon. To the dismay and surprise of many Opium and underground fans alike, the pair would release another project titled I5, U5, We5 in May of this year, 2024. Again, with no real rollout, no real marketing, or no real push. Just dropping. By this point in time, the Opium fatigue began to hit heavy from releasing 2 mediocre projects with no real changes from Homicide Gang to Destroy Lonely's second project being poorly received and Cardi releasing single after single, teasing a new album but still not dropping. The hype for Opium began to die down, with Ken being the only one holding the Opium mantle high, coming off his highly anticipated and successful album, A Great Chaos. Homicide would mix the heavy melodic trap sound of Fifth Amendment and the rage sound that they were known for and first came on the scene with on this new project I5. Fumbling around with the blend, some would hit along with some missing on this new project. Hearing what fans have said in regards to previous project, Michi takes over the reins on most tracks, but the pair seem to be missing that spark that made them popular in the first place, almost having an identity crisis, giving us more sporadic drawn out trap tracks missing that Opium rage flair from Snot or Not. That's not to say that every song is bad. There's a great handful of tracks, but that's all Homicide has been able to produce from the last 4 albums released in a little over a year and some change. It's understandable to see why people see Homicide Gang as the least Opium or don't hold the Opium banner as good as their label counterparts do, but I wouldn't go as far as to say that they're trash or useless. Atlanta is one of the many meccas of music, with trap constantly changing and evolving sonically. Now, do I think Homicide is the best out of Opium? It's hard to say, but I do believe Opium is genuinely a puzzle that only makes sense with the current pieces in place. Lone and Ken are clearly the anime niggas who huff paint and talk about girls while watching cartoons and come from the hoods of Atlanta and have that 1 foot in, 1 foot out perspective who just so happen to make cool, edgy, audio lean music. While Homicide gives Opium that gang street tie that Atlanta is typically known for, that's where the disconnect is. Most Ken fans are used to the dark cyberpunk Blade Runner synths and heavy gargoyle 808 drums. Ken plays into the Opium verse very well, being mysterious and cut off, only giving fans so much information, as does Destroy Lonely. But Homicide seems like a group that's rooted more into trap politics that's cool with Opium but doesn't follow the rules of Opium, being more okay with being outspoken, going on Instagram Live and being seen on camera, and just don't play into the Opium verse like Ken and Lone do, and just so happen to make good songs on rage beats here and there, but do not want to be rooted in that sound, which is why Lifestyle and Snot or Not were the 2 best received projects. They followed that Whole Lotta Red formula very, very well, but slowly the group expanded and branched out with different beat selections and productions, sourcing people like Mike Will made it to change their beat selection but not their flow. So basically trying to change their sound without trying to change their sound, which is what brings me to a very particular point. They are not Opium enough. For example, if you're walking down the street in Atlanta, which duo seems like they would make you more uncomfortable and make you cross the street from the possibility of robbing you? This or this? Okay, how about this and now this? You get my point, which brings me to one of my talking points: catering to the audience. Homicide isn't catering to the typical Opium audience member. They're not into fashion or dark imagery. Do they implement it to fall into the Opium brand? Yes, but I don't believe that's them entirely, which is what draws people more towards Ken, Cardi, and Lone. They only drop every so often and post every so often, and it leaves fans salivating for more, anticipating every potential drop, every potential post, and every song snippet, while Homicide Gang have dropped non-stop with no major growth on top of constantly being on social media, leaving nothing for their fans to guess or ponder on. Plus, Homicide Gang is a collective. Both Bino, Meech, and all of Homicide would have to be on the same dark, distant vibe to keep up with the rest of Opium, which is simply just too much. Same flow, different beat. I don't believe Homicide is trash at all, but I do believe that they only have two main flows: the fast, sporadic homicide flow and the nasally laid back melodic flow. Both flows are good, and there's been songs to back these claims up, but it's the same two flows every song back to back. Some tracks are better than others, but it makes most albums seem like one long running track with some serious highs and some serious lows. I can say they have been slightly stepping out of their comfort zone, trying different placements, figuring out who goes better where or who rides what beat the best in certain moments. There is effort in the tracks if you look and listen, but is it enough? Less is more. Homicide have what I like to call single syndrome. It's being able to produce songs that sound good, but only if it was in a singles format and spread out over time. These past few projects just seem like they're full of singles, which would be good if it wasn't followed by 10 more songs after the fact. It doesn't mean that the songs are bad, just too much of the same thing in one session. It breeds mundanity. So on the reasons why I feel like we shouldn't just toss Homicide to the side. One is willingness to step out of their comfort zone and improve on their sound. So from the first two projects, we could all agree that they were heavily influenced by a whole lot of Red and had a heavy rage trap sound to them. While the latest two projects have a couple of tracks that have that rage sound, but a lot of them have a lot more melodic vanilla trap Atlanta sounds that we're used to hearing, or they kind of veer off and go to an alternative-esque trap sound. The second point is they've made cohesive, great bodies of work in the past. Snot or Not is damn near no skips, with only like 2 songs not being downloaded. And in their first album, Homicide Lifestyle is a very solid first project with only probably like 3 or 4 skips on that. Like, we're not gonna sit here and act like they don't make great music. Even within the 2 latest projects, there are certified hits and bangers in those projects. The third point that I want to go ahead and say is that they are willing to give fans more music at a fast rate. Since being signed to Opium in 2021, they've dropped 4 times. The only problem with the rate of how fast they drop is how they haven't allowed themselves to grow sonically. So yeah, we get a lot of music, it's appreciated by some, but it doesn't really show improvement. And then with the way that they've dropped music, it seems like every album they've dropped has really only been in a year. Like, by the time you get over the last project, they're dropping another one. So it's a pro and a con, but I definitely think it's something that once they master their sound and figure out the direction they want to go in, it's gonna work to their benefit. The next point is, I would say, one of the biggest, which is the fact that they're a duo, which means more versatility. So the same premise with Ray Shrimmer, when they had their first 3 albums, they worked together, they bounced off each other really well, but they could also veer off and do their own things and make separate music that sounded good, and then when they came together, it was also a very nice sound. So I think that they really just need to tap into their versatility and the fact that they are a duo. Like, they're allowed to sound different. Like, it's cool to have your own sound within the group. And the last point is they give us more insight on the Opium lifestyle from a different POV. Like, these aren't Opium vamp-esque type niggas. These are regular dudes who happen to be signed to the label, who give us a little bit of insight on what it's like to be in that inner circle, because you're not going to get it from Cardi. I mean, you hardly get it from Ken and Lone. So they're giving you their POV, which is a little bit more widespread too, because they're not afraid to be on camera. They go live and they post pretty frequently. And actually, I lied. This was my last point, which is they expand the Opium sound, which ties into my first point, which is them willing to step out of their comfort zone. So they don't stick to just one particular sound. Yes, their flow is the same, but from their beat selection and things that they do sonically is very different compared to Destroy Lonely or Ken Carson. So it's either, my problem with Homicide Gang is, it's not the fact that they can't make good music, it's the fact that they have two flows that we've already went into detail about, and they use either or flow on different beats. Now, have they done slightly different vocal inflections and new ad libs and done some slight tweaking to their flow? Yes, they have, but it hasn't been enough to really engulf a new sound and draw people in. So I feel like their biggest problem is the fact that they can make good music, but all the stars have to be aligned and the beat has to be perfect, which shouldn't be the case. They should be able to hear one beat, figure out the flow that they need for that particular beat, and then do that flow to that beat, and be able to jump on a rage beat and then do the flow that they need for that, instead of taking the rage flow and doing it on just the vanilla trap sound and then throwing it over to like a more rage rock sound. Like, they should have different flows for different scenarios, and as of right now they don't, and that's their biggest downfall. I think the best way to sum up Homicide is with the track MW5 off the Fifth Amendment album. The track's first half is a chore to listen to, from Problem Child's prepubescent kiddish bars to the simplistic beat, until the second half where it's a complete switch, adding layers of sound, adding flair to the once dead track. Sounds like something off the PS2 golden era, like the start screen music. Homicide is a big bundle of potential that missed the mark just as much as they hit the mark, doing some beats justice and completely knocking it out of the park while falling completely flat on others. I believe if they just allow themselves to grow together and also separately, they'll find their true Opium sound and win fans over. Alright, so first and foremost, for all the Opium oppressors, again, I'm not trying to get y'all to drop Ken, drop Lone, but understand that this is a duo, and everybody that is signed to Opium, I would assume, is signed to Opium for a reason. We're not going to sit and act like Homicide is just complete trash. Do they have some repetitive tracks, a repetitive sound, and kind of a repetitive flow? Yes, but even Ken and Lone and sometimes Cardi have had that problem. Like, Ken just has great production. Like, that's one thing where Ken, even if his bars and vocal inflection and voice just isn't hitting, the production on the track is always gonna hit, and that's what makes people love Ken so much. Destroy Lonely had a whole project that seemed like one big ass song, and people were saying that it was just repetitive, the same thing over and over and over again. And this is after everybody loved No Stylist, the album right before. So we're not gonna sit and act like Homicide Gang doesn't make good music. First off, they were the last ones to get signed, and with that, since being signed, they've dropped 4 projects, and each project, the first 2 have that rage sound, and the last 2 are kind of dipping off into a different sound. So we can't really sit and say that they're the same every single time. Their flow is the same, but their beat selection and the way that they choose to rap is slightly different. Like, they have 2 flows, right? But usually it'll be the same, it'll be either or flow on just a different beat, and that's what makes them fall flat sometimes and gives us that repetitive sound that people are just tired of. But the effort is there. Like, we can't just sit and say that it's straight homicide on a track, every single track. Like, Michi is starting to take the reins a little bit more, and they're starting to innovate slightly, but they're dropping too frequently. Like, they need to go ahead and back the shit up, breathe a little bit, and allow fans to digest the music, and then they need to go and create. They need to find a 3rd, 4th, and 5th flow that allows them to be them. Either that, or they need to focus on just rage beats that they can slap on. They need to get that Snot or Not flair back. Like, I feel like Snot or Not was the lightning in the bottle that people love, and they need to get back to that. They need to recreate that in a way that makes sense for them. Because as of right now, them taking the Homicide Lifestyle and Snot or Not flow into these different beats with Mike Will Made It and other producers, it just doesn't work all the time. Some of them do, some of them don't. But I think the rap that Homicide get as just being trash overall and completely disregarded is just completely unwarranted. That being said, music aside, I'm not gonna get into what these niggas do in their spare time allegedly. That don't mean I condone anything these niggas is doing outside of the realm of music, because the only nigga in Opium who has a clean slate right now is Michi. So I'm not condoning anything that Bino, Ken, Lone, or Cardi is doing. Completely, culturally, drama aside, bro, just from a musical standpoint, these people, Homicide Gang, are not as bad as people are trying to make them seem. And even though I could agree that the latest two projects, they take a couple listens to really get in that mode, they're not as just enjoyable to listen to as Snot or Not or Homicide Lifestyle, but there are a few golden nuggets in each project. I mean, you got Guns in Soho, Lex Luger, Left Hand, High Voltage off of this latest project, the second half of Swanton Bomb, like even older tracks like Damn, Putting Them On, Holler, Snotty Rock, Snotty Wax, SSN, 5-5 Lifestyle, like No Evie. They have a good track record from Snotty or Not back. And even then, with the two latest projects, again, they have good songs sprinkled all through there. You know what I'm saying? Like Fifth Amendment, once you get past the Homicide hate, Fifth Amendment is actually a pretty solid listen all the way through. It's just a lot slower than what Snot or Not and Homicide Lifestyle was. You feel what I'm saying? So that's that. Do I believe Homicide Gang is the best in Opium? I'm gonna leave that up to interpretation. I'm not gonna say yes, I'm not gonna say no, but I do believe that they are in Opium for a reason and just have to continue to prove themselves that they are worth that spot. Do I think that they deserve all the hate they get? No. But do I think they need to improve? Yes. They put out just enough to keep us engaged if you are a Homicide fan, but they're not doing enough to gain new fans, I believe, if that makes sense. So y'all let me know in the comments what y'all think. Who is the best in Opium? Is Homicide Gang dead, done for, closed casket, or do y'all feel like they can come back and be bigger than ever? That being said, I'm done. Y'all have an amazing day, amazing night, whatever it is. I'm out.